So here's a pretty interesting clip that someone actually tipped me off to. Now this is from Kyle Kulinski's recent Secular Talking Smack segment, where he basically went in long depth about Bernie dropping out, doing a big reflection on why the campaign failed and why he lost and what's next. This was about a week ago, but the really interesting little tidbit that Kyle leaves in there that's is pretty interesting. So I want you guys to go ahead and check this out, and we will come back and talk about it.
Joe Biden is not electable and you are. And how do you do that? Guys, I'm not sure if I should say this publicly because I like keeping private conversations private, but I gave the Bernie campaign the exact talking points that they needed. Now, there's one person I blame for not adopting him. One person. Bernie Sanders. Because I just told you, I know as a matter of fact, David Sirota and Nina Turner, these are people who agree with my sentiments on this. The campaign manager, Faz Shakir, agrees with my sentiments on this. There's one person who doesn't, apparently, and that's Bernie. Bernie refused to say, Joe Biden can't win. Joe Biden can't beat Trump. Joe Biden can't beat Trump. He can't beat Trump. He's struggling. He's not doing well. He can't beat Trump. He never said that. He refused to say that. In fact, he said the opposite. He said the exact opposite. When asked, he would say, I do think Joe could beat Trump. That is like when the first time I saw that, I went, oh, okay. So we're going to lose. That was my thought when I first heard Bernie say that. It was the day after Super Tuesday when he got shellacked. One of the questions was softball down the center of the plate. Hey, do you think that Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump? He goes, I do. Not only are you supposed to say no to that, but you're also supposed to say, Joe Biden is Hillary Clinton. We just ran this experiment in 2016. Remember when Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump? You know why Hillary Clinton won, right, in the primary? Because she's the more electable one, the safer option. And what happened? That's right, she lost. There was a big hashtag on Twitter, Bernie would have won, that people ran with for a very long time. You want to know why? Because Bernie would have won. I'm a very strong general election candidate. I get the exact people that we need. We need young voters to win. We need independents. We need swing voters. We need the former Trump voters. I win every single one of those categories. Joe Biden is like Hillary Clinton. Don't run that failed experiment again. You run the so-called safe centrist, they're not so safe. In fact, he's not so safe. He's also not so centrist. I'm the centrist. Because I reflect the will of the people on all the issues. I'm right smack dab in the center of the country. I'm the moderate. I'm the moderate. Joe's the extremist. I'm the centrist. Joe's the extremist. I'm the actual safe option. Joe is the risky option. Joe's just like Hillary Clinton, and she lost. He's going to lose too. This is what he had to say. If you told me, Kyle, you have to give me one correction for the Bernie, just one correction for the Bernie campaign, it would be compare Joe Biden to Hillary Clinton and say you're more electable. That's it. If he had done that, if he made this argument every day from, a couple months before Iowa until today, he would win. Because again, the numbers show it, the data shows it. That's the main reason those older voters went for Biden, is they casually thought, yeah, he's the only serious one who could beat Biden. Or who could beat Trump, excuse me. He's the only serious one who could beat Trump. It's Joe Biden. What am I going to do? I have to vote for him. Even though I like Bernie on the issues, I can't.
So I think this is a pretty important piece of information because it kind of gives us some extra information. Now, according to reports that, have been surfaced and I had covered for you guys, we had known that people like David Sirota and Nina Turner were pressuring Bernie Sanders to go after Joe Biden more. But basically what had happened in this election, and this is why a lot of the blame has to go on Bernie Sanders for losing. And it's really because Bernie Sanders didn't do what he needed to do in terms of going after Joe Biden, and they failed to sort of land the knockout blow. So while Joe Biden was reeling from Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, the problem was there was never a knockout blow, and while they won with Latinos and with white majority areas, and they won with the minorities in those areas, but they were white majority states, he didn't do enough with the black vote. And what a crucial thing would have been this. So it was reported, according to a recent report, that basically David Sirota told Bernie Sanders, he said, you need to go after Joe Biden here, go after his Social Security record, his record with black people, and also with Bloomberg on stop and frisk at the South Carolina debate. And if you guys know, basically, when you have a debate in a state right before the election, that's your chance to speak directly to the voters because those people are watching. And so in 2016 in Michigan, what happened in Michigan? The night before the Michigan election, there was a Michigan debate, Democratic primary debate. And then what happened the following day? Bernie Sanders emerged victorious. So, and by a comeback win never seen before, pretty much, I think all of history, I think it literally broke a record. Like, whoa, he was down 15 points in aggregate polling and then somehow won. It's crazy. A lot of it had to do because it's debate. Because when you're in that state and the debate's in your state, you're watching the debate. So he didn't go with his strategy, and he could have distinguished himself from Joe Biden, spoke directly to black voters in South Carolina, told them about his record on Social Security. All the ish that he did on that Roney debate stage, he could have done at that South Carolina debate. And a big problem with all of this was this. That whole Warren beef was very unnecessary. And looking back at it, and unfortunately, this is all Warren's fault because she called him a sexist, which the response was totally warranted. But when you look back at it and think about it, we stopped paying attention to Joe Biden for a while. And everything turned heat into, it was Bernie, Pete Buttigieg, and Warren and Klobuchar. Those are sort of the four main players at that time. And who's hiding in all of that? Joe Biden. He was literally hiding in debates. You know, I think it was right before the South Carolina primary, or the South Carolina debate, or the Nevada debate. I believe it was a South Carolina one. My memory may be serving me incorrectly. But Tom Steyer basically, you know, he got a really angry Joe Biden going after him because Tom Steyer was doing what? He was eating Joe Biden's black vote. He was eating it up. And so the fact that he was eating it up and then Joe Biden went after him, you know, kind of KO'd him a little bit, then picked up Jim Clyburn's endorsement, sort of settled the dust, and Tom Steyer failed in South Carolina ultimately, and so did everyone else. He needed to do what he needed to do. You know, he did what he needed to do, and then he got to hide while Bernie and Warren were beefing hard, and Pete Buttigieg was also coming at him as a front runner because he was kind of up there at the time too. And so that whole beef with Warren took away a lot of attention, and it sort of ruined our later Warren pickups as well. And so if he had just gone after Joe Biden there, did some knockout blows, he could have really reached out to South Carolina's black voters, but he didn't end up doing that. And I have to tell you, I think history's like, that's not going to look good on Bernie Sanders. He's always going to look at the guy, and I hate to say this, but, you know, Tucker Carlson called him the lamest revolutionary ever. And that's just what he is. I'm sorry, but that in history, I think that's what's going to end up defining him. He had a chance to define himself otherwise. And even if he had gone swinging and lost, I think everyone would have been like, okay, well, he exhausted all options. Which is like, okay, he did what he did. If it didn't work, oh well. We tried everything we could. But that description from Tucker Carlson fits perfectly. He is the lamest revolutionary ever. Like, are you kidding me? Talk about this revolution, and then you're just the biggest, like, pussy on the planet. Like, oh my God. It hurts. It hurts, and it's actually, like, it's sort of offensive and insulting, and, like, I'm mad at Bernie Sanders for that. I'm angry at him. And at a certain point, he was scamming his supporters. He was like, if you sent a donation between Super Tuesday and the March 17th primaries, you should ask for a refund back for your money. They were sending people text messages. I was getting text messages between Super Tuesday and March 17th for donations. They're begging for money. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders is doing nothing different. He's not calling out Joe Biden. He's not running Social Security TV ads. You know, he's not doing anything. He's literally going on TV saying that Joe Biden can beat Trump. And it's like, yo, you are scamming your supporters right now. How are you going to keep losing? You're not actually trying to win, and you're taking like the last $27 of every freaking Amazon warehouse worker out there. Dude, like, so that period, he was literally scamming people. Seriously, that's not exaggeration. And the whole thing of saying that, you know, Joe Biden can beat Trump and not making it. His electability argument didn't stick. It was not well advertised, nor it just didn't land. His whole thing was, oh, we need um, never seen before turnout with youth vote. It just didn't pan out, especially because youth came out to vote, but the older people came out in higher numbers. So it just didn't stick. You know what would have stuck? What Kyle said. If you really want to be like a revolutionary, really balls to the wall type of dude, you would have said, look what happened with Hillary Clinton in 2016. We just had it right now. Because I think you need to spell it out for people. I really think you do. People are dumb, especially in the Democratic Party. The IQ is like negative 40. That's like the average IQ in the Democratic Party. You got to spell it out for them. You got to spell it out. But he didn't do that, obviously, because he's the lamest revolutionary ever, just like Tucker Carlson said. You could have done that. And he just did a horrible job of doing that, honestly. Really, really terrible job of doing that. He didn't even try. That's the worst part. And so, I think it was sort of the beginning of that problem. We kind of saw it, and its really big end was when remember when Bernie Sanders, Zephyr Teachout, had wrote that piece saying Joe Biden has a corruption problem? It was posted in like the Bernie newsletter or something like that, and then Bernie Sanders came out and disavowed it as if it wasn't correct. Guys, literally, Bill Maher went on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher. He brought the news piece with him. There was some other Democratic or Republican hack, I don't know who it was, I think it was Democratic, and he battled him. He butchered him because he was like, dude, is he wrong about this? Is she wrong about this stuff? And he defended Zephyr Teachout when Bernie Sanders did that. Now, like I always say, my problem with Bernie Sanders in 2016 is the same that I had now, which is that he went kid gloves. He went way harder on Hillary Clinton in 2016 than he did Joe Biden this time. And the reason why is because Joe Biden and Bernie were buddies. Hillary and Bernie were not. That's the difference between their two relationships. Very different relationships. And so Joe Biden liked Bernie, and they were buddies before Bernie Sanders was anybody. He was a nobody at the time, so he felt really that way. But I don't want this to be like, this character flaw is not something that I think is like, oh, it's okay, it is what it is, that's just who he is. Now, like, when the stakes are that high, I'm sorry, but your legacy is now going to be defined by that. I'm sorry, it is. Because you had the chance to be a real serious revolutionary. And again, the other thing of, basically campaigning as a moderate, a worldwide moderate in terms of like, oh, look, he should have, another thing I think he should have done, man, he should have grabbed onto the leg of FDR and just never let go. Don't stop talking about FDR. Don't stop talking, just invoke him all the time. I think at one of the debates, he didn't mention FDR, and it was like Amy Klobuchar and somebody else, like Pete Buttigieg, mentioned him. It's like, dude, you suck at this. Like, you are a horrible campaigner. How do you not know to latch on to FDR when the voter base that's not effing with you are older people who, where do the older people get their money? Where do they live off of? FDR's policies. Social Security, and then I know Medicare came from LBJ, but that's because it was expanded through the Social Security Act. Okay, I think it was 36, right? Social Security Act of 1936. So you need to do that. So that was another thing that he should have done, but he didn't do it because he sucks. And another fundamental issue for Bernie was, his sort of inner circle was so tiny, and it was not many people who would check him. A lot of the people around him were just yes men, and the few that were people who would check him, he would just ignore them. And so it was a recipe for disaster. And the sad truth is Bernie Sanders is somebody with horrible political instincts and serious fatal flaws. And it's unacceptable. It's unforgivable. Being in that situation and doing what he did, I don't care if it's your character flaw. Become a man, strap on a pair, and do something. I don't care. And so I think history will set him in as, oh yeah, he was a consistent guy, but when push came to shove, he ran away from the fight. He ran away, he stayed home, he got under his bed and sort of cried type of thing instead of fighting. I think that history, I think we'll look at him as like a good dude, but somebody who ultimately just wasn't the right leader for the movement. He just wasn't the right leader. And I think that's so sad. It really is. It's so sad because he had the opportunity and he let it slip through because, he's these fatal flaws. And Kyle confirming that he told them this stuff means that they had people who were, saying this, and Bernie didn't listen. And therefore, all of the blame has to land on Bernie Sanders. Nobody else but Bernie Sanders. He screwed us over, is basically what he did. And it's really unfortunate and sad. And I think most people won't really look at Bernie the same way again. Honestly, I think that it's kind of unacceptable what he did, and I'm definitely disappointed with him for it. And I love that Tucker Carlson quote where he said he's the lamest revolutionary ever, because I just feel like it summarizes him so damn well. But it's really sad, man. But that's just the state of affairs, unfortunately.